I'm very happy that I wasn't the son of a record producer or movie producer or something that grew up in Beverly Hills. I don't think I would have appreciated life as much. And I grew up very poor out in the country, and we didn't have water, running water and electricity or anything. We had an outhouse until when I was about 9, because I grew up at my grandmother's house, and it was just every day it was full of characters and funny stuff, and we found humor in just about everything. And I wouldn't trade the way I grew up for anything. I grew up in a family with a lot of women. I had a lot of aunts and cousins, a lot of females in our family. I was the first male grandchild on my mom's side of the family, Faulkners. And my grandmother and my mom were big influences on me, and they understood. As a little kid playing with rocks and sticks and stuff, and we didn't only make mud pies, we ate them. But they were very encouraging to me, whereas my dad's family, they were sawmill workers, and they're a pretty rough crowd. But my grandmother and my mother were my early influences, just as people and supporters. Who influenced me when I was a little kid? My mom was an Elvis Presley fan. Everybody loved Elvis. Then when the Beatles came along, just like everybody else who's been in a band as long as I have, the Beatles changed the whole deal. When we saw them in Ed Sullivan in 1964, I was 8 years old and never turned back. At that moment, it was like, this is what I'm going to do forever, or pitch for the St. Louis Cardinals, but that didn't work out. And I mean, just, for the history of it, I grew up as a pitcher, and I was a big pitcher in our region, and won the pitching trophy, led the league in strikeouts. My senior year, I was 8-1. I loved baseball, wanted to play for the St. Louis Cardinals. Bob Gibson was my hero. A guy saw me and invited me out to a camp for the Kansas City Royals. Went to the camp. I was talking to a guy behind the first base coach's box there, and they were taking infield practice. Third baseman threw over to first base. The guy wasn't looking, hit me right in the collarbone. I'd been there 30 minutes. And once I healed up from the collarbone, I started working for a sound company as a roadie and Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, a lot of people like that, and Pure Prairie League, and never looked back. So, but let's just say made it up to the majors for a year or two, or whatever, or if I became successful at it. I would have been retired so long now, I'd be selling cars in Long Beach. I would, because athletes' careers aren't that long. I mean, I can do what I do till I drop, So I think it probably worked out better, I worked every job imaginable. I worked for a storm door factory, a machine shop, worked at a sawmill. I hauled hay from the time I was 13, worked for the highway department on asphalt crew, drove heavy equipment, I did a little bit of everything. Went to LA and we got a job at Shakey's Pizza because I told them I knew how to make pizzas. I didn't know a damn thing about it, but I needed something. And like I said, I didn't know anything about movies. I mean, we had one little theater in the town when we moved to where I went to high school in Malvern, and they just played whatever Disney movie was out at the time, like The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes or something like that. I didn't think about movies. We just looked at them for entertainment, and you'd meet some girl at the theater, that kind of stuff. And so music was all there was to me. And my mom's brother, Don, was a country musician. And he was like my hero. He was like Willie Nelson to me before I knew who Willie Nelson was. And when I got to be a teenager, and I was, of course, in rock and roll bands, he asked me to play drums in his country band at VFW clubs. It was pretty interesting, but those were early influences. But if I had to name one single thing that has me here today in Crockett, Texas, it was the British invasion. And the music of Memphis was really the two things that, my first record I ever made was in 1975 in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Ultimately, Phil Walden, who started Capricorn Records, discovered Otis Redding and the Allman Brothers, and everybody became my manager. So it was like this whole sort of Southern thing I had, but at the same time, the British invasion is what made us all want to be in a band. I never intended to be an actor. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about movies. I grew up in bands and worked as a roadie, moved to LA to play music, and then ended up, somehow getting on, I think it was Matlock. I had a scene or something. And my mother, years before I even went to LA, she said, I have a feeling Burt Reynolds is going to be instrumental in your success. And she said, and you will have success. And sure enough, in the late 80s, I met Burt Reynolds, and he helped me out quite a bit. I'm as dumb as a bag of hair, but one thing I have, because I grew up with severe anxiety disorder, which I still have. I have severe obsessive compulsive disorder, but I also was severely dyslexic. For some reason, I've always been able to memorize things instantly. It's like, dumb as hell in every other aspect of life, but I can see things. It's almost like a savant thing. I can look at a monologue like that, and I see 2 or 3 chunks. I don't read left to right slowly like most people do. I look at something, I go, oh, okay, it says that. It's almost like some kind of weird science fiction movie where it goes into my head. You do a monologue that's 3 pages long, you'll drop something here and there that might be important, and you do another take and you get it. I just have a knack for remembering that stuff, and if you know what it means, it's easier to memorize. You can tell when an actor is just reciting lines they've memorized. There's a vacant look in their eye, and they're remembering the words. I just go out there and start talking to somebody, and I throw some of my stuff in too every now and then. Taylor has been very kind to me about that because he knows I'm essentially an improvisational actor. So he lets me throw some of my stuff in there, and if I say it differently, he's good with it. I'll tell you where I do have a problem is if there's a scene that's 9 pages long and there's 7 or 8 people in it, and I've got one line every other page, I sit there and start talking about or thinking about other shit. Well, I've seen sometimes, it's because you can't help it. With my mental issues, or I'll get obsessed with looking at Sam Elliott's mustache or something, and I'll just be staring, and then all of a sudden they'll say, you're lying. I'm like, huh? And I go, oh yeah, this is wonderful chicken fried steak, or whatever it is, and then you move on. It's the days when I get to say what's on my mind in that character. It's when I just unabashedly am who I am in that moment. And who I am, meaning that character, but I don't like to speak of it in those terms. Because, like a lot of actors, they'll talk about the character, and they'll say, well, who is Gary Matthews? He's the type of guy, well, see, if you do that, you've already separated yourself from the character. I play myself in everything. I don't care how different it is from me on the surface. The character in Sling Blade to the character in A Simple Plan to Bad Santa to this to Fargo, Goliath, any of it. I'm always playing myself no matter what, no matter how physically different I look or how different the character is from what you might understand about me, Obviously I've never been a killer, but I've played one a couple of times. But if I were a killer, I'd be about like that. And if I were a lawyer, I'd be kind of like the guy in Goliath. If I were in the oil business, I'd be like Tommy Norris. The whole movie thing, I don't belong in it. I don't belong with, I have a few friends who are actors, mostly people in the music world. I don't understand the lifestyle. I don't beg for awards. I already got a case full of them. I don't need any more. I don't need to go out and put a tuxedo on, stand on these red carpets and stuff like that. I feel uncomfortable around rich people. I feel like I'm a poor kid from Arkansas. I don't even know how this all happened, and I don't get it. I appreciate it I appreciate that I'm able to take care of my family and give them things that I would never have been able to give them if it hadn't been for this. So I appreciate fame. I am uncomfortable with it, however, and don't quite understand it. I frankly am satisfied. If they told me tomorrow, dude, you're done, you know, I'd be like, all right, I'm fine. I'm good. Because I've been myself since I was born. I've never stopped. I mean, look, I'm a hillbilly who grew up in Arkansas and Houston. You know, I'm not, I've never dreamed any of this would happen.